welcome to one of the first panels here at IAC. I must tell you and compliment all of you, you are by far the smartest people here because we are here about to talk about the future. Not only are we here to talk about the future, here, I don't have cooties, let me sit next to you. Not only are we here to talk about the future, we're talking about one of the greatest and largest asset classes that we have with some of the people who have decided that they were going to take the risk and attempt to disrupt it.
I grew up in a kibbutz in Israel, and I had the privilege probably to live the most amazing childhood. I used to go barefoot like by age of 18. I worked with my dad in the field, milking cows, picking oranges. I had like 15 homes and many brothers, not biological. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. When I was missing, I was want to play guitar. I went to the rehearsal room, and many years before Amazon Go started with these touchless stores, we did it in the kibbutz because the seller knew my family and she was writing the check. After born and raising in the kibbutz, I moved to the special forces in Israel and served for 7 years. And it was in a very weird way, probably the same experience, community-wise. But at age 26, more or less, I moved to the big and shiny city of Tel Aviv, and I was pissed off. I mean, life sucks because you work very hard, you live in a tiny apartment, you don't know anyone around you, so it was completely the contradiction of the kibbutz. And then me and my partner, Or, started to ask very tough questions like, why we are connected only to the real estate that we live in. I mean, I know different scenario. I know that you have a large access to a much wider network of real estate. I know what does it mean to know your neighbors, to know the local vendors, to know the small businesses. And that led us to the thinking.
Well, let's stop right there. So now we know kibbutzim, special forces operator, goes to the big city. That's the maturation of the company we're going to talk about, right? All right, cool. Let's stop right there. Now we've got them intrigued. Let's move on. Omer, tell me, what happened in your past that brought you to want to disrupt this business?
So hi everyone. So my name's Omer. I'm originally from Haifa and also currently from Haifa. So swam my whole life, Navy, as Eric said, for 8 years underwater. And then undergraduate physics at the Technion, and then last semester I sort of realized that I could graduate with a physics degree, but I will never be a physicist. And so I moved to the engineering schools, realized I don't want to be an engineer as well. Went to MIT because I could take 2 more years to sort of think what I want to do in life. I was turning...
Wait. Full stop. Submarines, Technion, MIT. I mean, I'm impressed. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. So tell me, though, then how did that go to real estate? Because you should probably be, like, in space right now doing something.
Yeah, so I think the theme is sort of, I get bored pretty quickly. And so I try and find places where I feel out of my comfort zone, right? So submarine is probably the most extreme environment you could imagine. Physics in the Technion is also quite extreme. And then post MIT, I joined a mobility startup called Via that is basically reinventing how public transit works, right? And so I spent there 5 years, joined when we were 16, left when we were 900. And I sort of saw how you could go into a very old, traditional sort of industries and really disrupt them with technology. And having spent 5 years at VI, I wanted to move to a new industry. Real estate is probably the biggest industry, biggest problem, biggest unsolved problem in today's world, where technology hasn't really disrupted how things are done. And so that's kind of why I'm here.
And now is the germination of the company that we'll discuss.
Yes.
Very cool. Guy, 20 years ago, nobody was talking about technology and real estate. Tell the audience a little bit about how you knew that today it was going to be a $20 billion industry and why you even thought about your history that you would take that risk.
I didn't know. So yeah, I moved to the US 25 years ago to do my MBA, and I found myself living in one of the Trump condos on the West Side Highway of Manhattan. Anyone knows? Back then the Trump name was okay. And I was living in a 307-unit condo, and there was no communication between residents amongst themselves and the building staff. It just didn't exist. So in my almost naive mindset, by the way, you don't need to always research things before starting a company, because if you over-research it, you find out that there's many competitors and you're disillusioned and don't do it. I didn't research anything. I said, I'm going to start a website for the building. And the board president liked me, but the Trump organization said they're not going to take any part of it. But he forced them. So it also another lesson about entrepreneurship, it's all about relationships. If the board president wouldn't have liked me, I've never been in this business. So push come to shove, it started a website for that condo and more websites, and it became the largest software for residents in multifamily in the country. And it was acquired by RealPage, which is the largest property management software company in the world. And I was there for a few years, left it, started another company in the same space, and called Carson, and that company was acquired last year. So I was 20 years in the same space of resident-facing software.
So we're learning ignorance is bliss. Is that was that the what we're saying here?
Don't over-research stuff.
So while we get into these companies, I want to tell you guys just a brief story. I'm with one of the largest developers in the world at this point, and he shows me a slide, and he says, real estate is one of the slowest moving industries, and that the most successful in real estate are risk averse. The point of that, I'm saying, is to just understand in the smallest minutia what it is that these guys are actually breaking into. The industry itself doesn't want to change, and these young men are forcing that change, right? So let's get into the company that you've now created, Chen. So tell me, what is it? What are you doing these days? And we understand that what's your history, but now how have you now created and monetized that in what I think is the greatest city? But
Perfect. All right. And feel free to stop me once again. It's totally fine. So we took the elements of the kibbutz and we started to implement them in a city in southern district of Tel Aviv. We raised a fund of $200 million and bought real estate. The idea was to reinvent how neighborhoods act. We learned during the process that real estate and management, like owning and managing the real estate, it's probably not the right way for us. Because we wanted to create an entire movement and allow people all over the world to feel a sense of belonging and connected to where they live. This is where we started to take the elements, the tools that we built for ourselves to create a unique neighborhood experience, and started to build technology that allowing other owners and operators to create and customize the resident experience of the residents. So today, Venn, it's like, you can call it a kibbutz in a box. We are working with big owners and big operators, and we're giving them tools to build communities on their own portfolios. Communities many times perceived as an hippie, a kibbutznikim thing, but actually it's probably one of the strongest business drivers because we are showing consistently that when people feeling connected to their neighbors and to their neighborhood, they are willing to stay, mean retention, they are willing to bring their friends, means increase in demand, and they are willing to consume more from their operator because they have sense of trust. So at the end of the day, we are creating alignment of interest between the owner, the operator, and the resident, that the way I see it, it's probably one of the biggest frictions in the real estate market.
I just want to, he glossed over it, but this kibbutznik raised $200 million in order to acquire and then curate a neighborhood. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. And if you don't grab any of these guys afterwards to hear the rest of their story, it's insane, and you should. And just so you know from a high level, he basically said, I created a neighborhood. So there's a theory called the 15-minute city. He's the one who's creating the 15-minute city. He's saying, what do you need in order to create a market that you would want to stay in your residence or your commercial space longer, and coffee shop or paddle tennis or whatever it is, and he's the one finding that information, curating it, and establishing that, and he did it in Tel Aviv, and he's doing it in New York City and I guess elsewhere. It's absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to pick your brain on the future. Omer, submarines, living in the city. What did you tackle with your MIT brain? Tell us.
Now, with such a build-up, I don't know where to start. So we, Localize is building the operating system of the future for real estate, for residential real estate, right? The premise is that for most people, buying a house is the biggest financial decision of their lifetime. It's a very emotional decision, and so, many companies are trying to sort of completely digitize this process. We actually think the human is at the core of this decision, right? Human agents will stay. When people buy a home, they need a human agent, but for the human agent to be successful, they need to do quite a lot, right? They need to manage thousands, if not tens of thousands of meaningful relationships every single day in order to get people to a point where they know what they're buying, what it is that they want, and actually and make the transaction. And so what Localize does is we are building tools that we then license to agents and brokerages that allow them to manage these meaningful relationships at scale, right? You're an agent, you wake up in the morning, you have thousands of people that you can talk to. So Localize gives you technologies that allow you to offload much of what you want to do but don't get to through technology, right? We give you conversational engines, we give you recommendation engines, we give you tools to communicate, to learn about your buyers. We basically use AI and technology to nurture, qualify, profile, advance your leads, the people that you have in your Rolodex, until the point where they are ready, qualified, profiled. They need a human to take them to a specific property, and then we give them back to you, and we say, here's everything we know, here's a warm introduction, go close the deal.
Very cool. Just so to give you a different perspective on it, you've heard of Iron Man, and there's a human inside. He's powering basically the real estate community. He didn't say it, and I'll say it because I don't particularly care. You're just a human. How can you use the technology that's available to basically power you to be able to communicate with others over a vast scale? So he's taking one person and he's juicing them up to 1,000. So basically, if you're not using his technology, I would say that I find it hard for you to compete in the marketplace. If we all look at our phones and our digital access, and that's where our community is, he's attacking just that. What he didn't say is he also created AI. Now, we're talking about a physicist creating AI, not like me putzing around with AI. So his AI is actually communicating with your marketplace, driving them, nurturing them, so they're coming to you ready, willing, and able. So imagine in any business where you're forward-facing in sales, where you're actually getting the consumer who already feels like they know you and have met you and wants to transact with you. I mean, it's tremendous, and that's why he's as successful as he is. Guy, we know you had your experience in that Trump Tower. So what did you then create? What was it that Carson Living really was? And then what are you doing today? And how are you applying that?
So first of all, I like simple businesses. The business I start are always very simple. The reason I started active building my previous company was to put the resident first in multifamily. Up until then, the software in multifamily was really about the back end, property management systems. What was missing is software that puts the resident first with their benefit. And that was successful. And then with Carson, it was for smaller and medium-sized buildings that had no service on site. We added a remote doorman, but also the other problem was there became a proliferation of apps. Sometimes if you live in a big building, you might have 6 different apps. One for opening the door, one for the intercom, one for payments, one for community. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. So we coined the term one app resident experience, meaning you tie everything that you need to do in the building into one app that does everything you need. And that was very successful. So, in a nutshell, what I believe, and this, we're all hooked on our phones, all day, and if everything you need to do in your house or in your apartment is in your phone in one app, that's very powerful. So that's the basis of what Carson is. All the operations and community features in your building coming into one app that's used by the property manager.
And you're also involved with a new organization as well. Do you want to touch on that, or we can leave it alone?
Stay with Carson.
All right. So I just want to tell you, not that Guy asked me to pitch this. I use Carson. I'm a builder developer. I just completed 80 units in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, on the waterfront. And what he's not saying is apps became like your keys. You used to have like 50 keys. Now you have 50 apps. He consolidated those apps so that I get access control, pay my bill, book the gym, and everything else. I say to my competitors and also my peers, all things being equal, if we are not mobile-first technology for the way that you interface with this building, you're going to be left behind. If we're staring at Instagram all day, if we're using mobile technology and you're not applying that to the way in which you interface with your building, you're not going to want to live there. What he's also not telling you is that the absorption of this type of ideology is minuscule in the world today. Not many people are doing it. Only those on the cutting edge, and he's already basically sold it, he's out, and he's starting a new thing. That's how forward-facing and futuristic that he was, and all of these guys are. So, we now have a captivated audience of these superhuman smart people. What we want to know, and what I always like to ask, and I have this podcast and I'll promote it later, is what is the future? What is not only the future for your company, but what's a trend that you're seeing in prop tech as it relates to real estate coming in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? And then what do you see as your vision?
I will tackle the human element because they are smarter than me. And I'm sure that innovation they will cover. I think there is two trends that we see based on data. One, since COVID, people are lonelier than ever. So in a way, I'm promoting my own company, but I truly believe that we are reaching to a point that we need more human connection, and especially with all the innovation and technology and phone and so on and so forth. And in addition, we are driving with cars with our phone, paying everything through the phone, but when we need to send a service request or a payment, it's a completely different experience. So I think we see the experience starting to increase. The other thing which is super interesting, and we see it lately, we are starting to experience or to see workforce challenges. Like since COVID as well, it's pretty hard to hire new employees. There is a huge shortage in employees, so the way we are preparing and predicting the future, it's a lot about automation, even before very complicated and sophisticated technology as AI.
So, by the way, we are lonelier. I mean, we're staring at our phones all day. So creating that human connection, I completely agree. So give us one prediction for how technology is going to impact real estate, because we are the disruptors here. You are the disruptor. So what's one thing, it doesn't have to be in your business, that you see is going to change real estate using technology?
So I think, and it's obviously relate to what we are doing, but
as it should, by the way. That's
course.
why you're up here. Don't worry.
I think that this is hardware. It's a piece of plastic. Some of them can be nice. Some of them can be less nice. Some of them can be on the river, and some of them can be in Williamsburg. Same with buildings. Although there is many softwares that managing the buildings for decades, we didn't saw yet an operating system for the resident experience or the real estate as a whole. The fact that they can download any app from this phone with store in the cloud and consume something or consume experience or get a new skill, and we cannot do it in our homes, it's a bit weird. So we are betting and aiming to create this operating system, but we believe that that's probably going to be one of the next trends.
Right, and that usually is as a result of the cost in order to recreate something if you start it from what the new technology is. 100% agree. Very cool. Omer, drop it on us, bro. Let us know the way in which you see the trends in real estate and technology over the next few years.
So I think the future of residential real estate technology is one where deep technologies drive much of the process, right? So technologies like machine learning, natural language processing, AI, all of those buzzwords that we've been hearing for a few good years have made an evolutionary leap over the last couple of years. And so, my prediction for the next couple of years is that, again, the human is here to stay, but agents, brokerages, stakeholders who lean into technology and choose to leverage and be amplified by technology will break through and will be much more efficient and will be able to scale efficiently. And those who won't will be left behind. That's sort of my prediction. And I think it's becoming very, very clear that the solution, the use cases, the tools are now easy to adopt. They make a huge impact immediately. And so, I think we'll start to see much more adoption very quickly.
Does this mean you're going to be like one of the first people for Neuralink? Juice up your whole brain with technology? You and Alon?
After he finishes testing on monkeys, maybe. We'll see.
Guy, how about yourself? I mean, you're obviously on this panel. You were a decade before everyone was even paying attention. I mean, we want to pay attention to what you have to say. Tell us. Where's the future?
You look really old, and the Commodore story is not a good one. I agree with what Chen and they said. I also think that real estate, actually, the adoption of cutting-edge technology like AI and things like that is much slower. I know that AI is its first successful implementation in multifamily is a company called Elise AI. They do actually AI for leasing. That's a great example of real AI and natural language processing that's successful in multifamily now. But I think it's going to take a while for other technologies like that to take hold. But I think there's a physical trend that's impacting real estate in a big way. Basically, hybrid work. People working from home is really changing multifamily and the way real estate is, because when you have people working from home, then the whole paradigm of how people live and work is changing. So if you are living in a multifamily building and you're actually working from your home, your expectations of place you live is different, and that impacts technology, because if you can also rent a co-working space, and if you can use your app to create a bigger sense of community in the building, like what Chen was saying. So I think these trends that COVID has really accelerated are changing the way we live and also have a big impact on technology.
So let me ask you guys, and just briefly, because we don't have a ton of time, and I definitely want you guys to be able to promote all of your channels that they can all find you. What has been the biggest, impediment for real estate to embrace what it is that you're doing? What's the argument that you keep hearing from, the already in place, deeply seated real estate families and companies when you approach them? Like, what is your biggest problem? Source of friction, I think we call it in our speech.
So I think that, and it relates to the near future of real estate, I think that the fact that it's still well-established and very successful industry for the owners, with the adoption of technology from the type of generation that manage this industry. This is probably still a gap, at least for us, that bringing something very innovative and consumer-facing and experience and so on. But going back to changes now, when son and daughters are starting to get into a lot of the family businesses, you're starting to see how it's starting to open.
So you say time. Time is going to be the biggest thing. You just got to make sure
and,
you're on time.
I hope not, but crisis many times accelerate those things as well.
Yeah, I understand. Omer, talk to me.
I would say ego, clearly, number one. We talk to agents, and the biggest impediment is ego. We talk to them and we say, we can help you close more business. You can leverage technology to meaningfully engage each and every one of your 10,000 people in your Rolodex, and they say, I can do it on my own. How long has it been since you spoke to this person? Like 2.5 years. But I can close them when they're ready. I'll talk to them. And so I think once people give up their ego and understand that they can actually focus on what humans are very good at and offload what technology is better at, the world would move much quicker. And so that is what we're trying to sort of unpack and unblock for people.
So slaying the ego, I completely agree. Obviously, that's a human condition, so that's another one. So we got age, human condition. Talk to me.
2 factors. One, residential real estate is inherently a very profitable business. And when you're a very profitable business, your incentive to change is small. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is a lot of legacy systems. And the legacy systems are very hard to integrate with new technologies. And people don't want to, get the headache of integrating new technology with the old is difficult. Those are 2 big factors.
No, I agree with you, and they should read Innovator's Dilemma, because as they sit there, collect their money, they're going to get rocked one day when those that needed to make that change did, and they didn't pay attention to it. So listen, I implore everyone here and everyone at this conference to find these guys and to communicate with them. Not only did they take risk, raise a bunch of capital, exit businesses, in a business that didn't want to change, they were able to make that change and create a successful company. So you should definitely try to grab them and hear what they have to say. But I think it's super important, though, that you guys promote where we can find you, where are you on social, what are your company emails or websites, so that everyone in the audience can actually find you and communicate with you. And by the way, the only one with a logo of his company up here. At least, he's branded here,
So, Venn.city, that's the website. We are in Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, LA, New York, Philadelphia, and Michigan, if you want to stop by and see a community.
Little LinkedIn, maybe?
Venn City.
Nice. All right, don't give away any personal information. All right, you're not going to find him, guys. Good luck.
I'm Chen Avni,
Catch
by the
him
way.
here.
So you can grab me here, Omer Granot. Localizeos.com is our website, and you can, on LinkedIn, Localize OS, you can reach out to us. We're currently operating in Israel, New York, Chicago, Miami, and expanding quickly. So if you want to partner with us anywhere in the US, reach out.
Carson.live, New York City.
And then no LinkedIn for you. You're another anonymous. All right, well, for me, I will promote myself for sure. Instagram, E_Brody. LinkedIn, Eric Brody. The Real Deal, I got the Blueprint. Real Tech Talk podcast. All of these guys now have to be on it. And we're out there, you guys. So listen, it has been an absolute pleasure. I hope we opened up this conference for you with something really to think about, because these guys are making some really interesting strides out there. We appreciate you sitting down and talking to us, and feel free to come up to me. I don't stop talking. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.